Welcome to Eldermare Nights. Before we begin tonight's journey, take a slow breath and let your body relax. Let the day gently fade away from your thoughts. There is nothing you need to do now, nothing you need to solve. Only this moment and the sound of a quiet story. Tonight, we travel to a peaceful world called Eldermere, a town where a calm lake reflects the stars and where an old tower watches over silent nights. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you want, and allow yourself to drift into the beginning of a medieval bedtime story. Long ago, in a peaceful corner of an old kingdom, there stood a quiet town called Eldermere. Nestled beside a crystal-clear lake and surrounded by gentle hills, it was a place where life moved slowly and calmly. Travelers who passed through often lingered longer than they intended, enchanted by the town's peaceful beauty. The lake was the heart of Eldermere. During the day, its waters reflected drifting clouds and passing birds. But at night, the lake became something even more magical. When darkness settled across the land and the first stars appeared overhead, the water mirrored the heavens so perfectly that it seemed as though another sky existed beneath the surface. The people of Eldermere loved this sight. Every evening, after the day's work was done, families would gather outside their cottages to watch the stars emerge one by one. Children sat upon grassy hillsides, pointing toward bright constellations. Grandparents shared old stories passed down through generations. Fishermen returning from the lake navigated by familiar stars that had guided their families for centuries. The town itself was small but welcoming. Stone cottages lined winding paths. Colorful gardens bloomed beside wooden fences. Warm lanterns glowed softly from windows after sunset. The scent of fresh bread often drifted from village ovens, and friendly greetings could be heard wherever people met. Life in Eldermere was simple. The seasons arrived gently. Spring filled the hills with wildflowers. Summer painted the lake with golden sunlight. Autumn wrapped the forests in shades of amber and crimson. And winter covered rooftops with soft blankets of snow. The years passed peacefully there. Nothing seemed rushed. Nothing seemed out of place. And above all, the stars remained constant, watching silently from the heavens. Many people admired them. Many people wondered about them. But among everyone in Eldermere, there was one person who loved the stars more than anyone else. His name was Rowan, and high upon a grassy hill overlooking the lake, his story was only just beginning. Many years before he became known as the Star Watcher, Rowan was a quiet and curious boy. While other children spent their afternoons racing through fields and climbing trees, Rowan often preferred to sit alone beneath the open sky. He loved watching clouds drift across the heavens. He loved listening to the wind. And more than anything else, he loved asking questions. Why did the stars appear only at night? Where did they go during the day? How far away were they? No one seemed to know, and that only made him more curious. Each evening, Rowan would walk to the edge of the lake after supper. The water was always calm at that hour. As darkness settled over Eldermere, the first stars would begin to appear above him. Soon, hundreds more would follow. Rowan often sat quietly on the grass, watching their reflections shimmer upon the lake's surface. Sometimes it felt as though he was sitting between two skies, one above him and one below. The sight never grew old. Rowan's grandfather noticed the boy's fascination with the night sky. On clear evenings, they often sat together outside the cottage. The old man would point toward the stars and tell stories he had learned during his younger years. He spoke of brave sailors who crossed distant seas. He spoke of ancient kings who followed the stars across deserts. And he spoke of mysterious constellations that had guided travelers for centuries. Rowan listened carefully to every word. The stories filled his imagination with wonder. One winter evening, shortly before Rowan's birthday, his grandfather presented him with a small wooden box. Inside rested an old brass spyglass. It was worn and scratched from many years of use, yet to Rowan it seemed more valuable than gold. Carefully, he lifted it from the box and looked through the polished lens. Distant objects suddenly appeared much closer. The world felt larger and somehow more magical. From that day forward, Rowan carried the spyglass wherever he went. He used it to watch birds flying above the hills. He used it to study distant boats crossing the lake. And every clear night, he pointed it toward the stars. Although the small spyglass revealed only a little more than his eyes alone, it opened a doorway inside his imagination. For the first time, Rowan began dreaming of distant worlds. As the years passed, Rowan's fascination with the heavens only grew stronger. The stars no longer felt like tiny lights scattered across the sky. They felt like old friends waiting to share their secrets. And deep within his heart, a quiet dream began to grow. One day, he would learn everything he could about the night sky. One day, he would watch the stars more closely than anyone in Eldermere ever had. Though he did not know it yet, that dream would shape the rest of his life. As Rowan grew older, his love for the stars never faded. While many of his childhood friends chose trades and professions, Rowan spent much of his time learning about the world beyond Eldermere. Whenever travelers visited the town, he listened carefully to their stories. Sailors spoke of navigating vast oceans beneath unfamiliar constellations. Merchants described distant lands where different stars appeared in the sky. Scholars shared maps of the heavens drawn by generations before them. Rowan collected every story and every piece of knowledge he could find. The more he learned, the more fascinated he became. One evening, while watching the sunset over the lake, Rowan realized something. If he truly wished to study the stars, he needed a place of his own. A quiet place, a peaceful place, a place where he could watch the heavens every night without distraction. As the last light faded from the sky, an idea slowly formed in his mind. He would build a tower. Not a grand castle tower, not a fortress, just a simple stone tower upon a hill where he could observe the stars. The thought filled him with excitement. The following spring, Rowan began searching for the perfect location. He walked across fields. He climbed gentle hills. He explored the shores of the lake. Finally, he found exactly what he was looking for. High above Eldermere stood a grassy hill overlooking both the town and the water. From its summit, the horizon stretched endlessly in every direction. The stars would be visible from there without obstruction. Standing upon the hilltop, Rowan smiled. He knew he had found the right place. When the townspeople learned about Rowan's plan, many offered to help. Farmers carried stones. Carpenters shaped wooden beams. Fishermen transported supplies from across the lake. Even children helped by gathering small tools and bringing food to the workers. The tower slowly rose above the hillside, stone by stone, day by day. The project brought the town together. Everyone seemed eager to contribute, for they all knew how much the stars meant to Rowan. Months later, the tower was nearly complete. Only one thing remained: a telescope. After years of saving coins and trading with merchants, Rowan finally acquired a beautiful brass telescope. It was larger and more powerful than anything he had ever used before. When it arrived in Eldermere, the entire town came to see it. The polished brass gleamed in the sunlight. Children stared at it with wonder, and Rowan could hardly believe it belonged to him. Carefully, he carried it to the highest room of the tower. At last, the tower was finished. That evening, Rowan climbed the winding staircase to the top. He lit a lantern, opened the round wooden shutters, and stepped into the cool night air. Above him stretched a sky filled with countless stars. For the first time, he looked through the great telescope. The heavens appeared closer than ever before, brighter, clearer, more beautiful. A feeling of peace settled over him. The tower on the hill had become everything he had hoped for. And from that night onward, Rowan's life would never be quite the same again. Before long, A peaceful rhythm settled into Rowan's life. Each morning he enjoyed the simple pleasures of Eldermere. He visited the marketplace. He greeted neighbours along the winding paths, and sometimes he spent hours walking beside the lake. But as evening approached, he always returned to the tower. No matter the season, no matter the weather, watching the stars had become part of who he was, as natural as breathing, as familiar as the turning of the seasons. Every sunset began the same way. Rowan would light a small lantern at the base of the tower. Then he slowly climbed the spiral staircase. The stone steps curved upward through the quiet building. Above him waited the observation room, the place he loved most. When he finally reached the top, he opened the wooden shutters and welcomed the cool evening air. Far below, the lights of Eldermere glowed warmly in the growing darkness. One by one, the stars emerged. At first, only a few could be seen. Tiny points of light scattered across the fading sky. Then more appeared, and more, until the heavens were filled with countless shining stars. Rowan never grew tired of the sight. Though he had witnessed it thousands of times, each evening felt special. Each evening felt new. He often sat quietly for several minutes before touching the telescope, simply appreciating the beauty above him. The lake below became most beautiful after dark. When the wind was calm, its surface reflected the stars perfectly. The lights above seemed to continue endlessly below. Sometimes Rowan found it difficult to tell where the sky ended and the water began. The reflection transformed the lake into a second heaven, a silent world of stars beneath the earth. It was one of his favorite sights in all the kingdom. As the night deepened, Rowan turned his attention to the telescope. He studied familiar constellations. He followed the slow movement of distant planets. He watched shooting stars briefly streak across the darkness. Sometimes he filled notebooks with careful observations. Other nights, he simply watched. There was comfort in the quiet routine. The stars asked for nothing. They simply shone, patiently, faithfully, night after night. Near midnight, the world often became perfectly still. The town below fell asleep. The marketplace grew silent. The roads emptied. Only the occasional call of an owl echoed across the hills. During these peaceful hours, Rowan felt closest to the heavens. The worries of the world seemed far away. The tower stood quietly above Eldermere. The lake shimmered beneath the stars, and Rowan remained at his telescope, content to spend the night among the endless lights of the sky. Little did he know that before long, something unusual would appear among those familiar stars. A mystery that would capture the attention of the entire town.
As the years passed, Rowan's tower became one of the most beloved places in Eldermere. Although he had built it for studying the stars, he never kept it to himself. Anyone who wished to visit was welcome. Children climbed the hill after school, travellers stopped during their journeys, and townspeople often spent quiet evenings there, enjoying the view. Rowan greeted every visitor with kindness. His door was rarely closed, and his lantern always seemed to be glowing.
The children of Eldermere loved the tower most of all. They would race up the hill together, laughing as they went. Many had never looked through a telescope before. The first time they peered through the brass instrument, their eyes widened with amazement. "Are those really stars?" they often asked. Rowan smiled. "Indeed they are." Sometimes he showed them bright planets. Other times he pointed toward distant constellations. The children never seemed to tire of it, and neither did Rowan. On clear nights, groups often gathered outside the tower. Blankets were spread across the grass. Lanterns glowed softly nearby, and everyone looked upward. Rowan shared stories passed down through generations. He spoke of sailors guided by the stars, ancient travelers crossing deserts beneath moonlit skies, and kingdoms so distant that few believed they existed. Whether the stories were true hardly mattered. The peaceful evenings brought people together, and that was enough. Word of the Star Watcher slowly spread beyond Eldermere. Travelers began visiting the town simply to meet him. Some came from neighboring villages. Others journeyed from distant regions of the kingdom. Many expected to find a great scholar surrounded by mysterious secrets. Instead, they found a gentleman who enjoyed sharing the beauty of the night sky. The visitors often left surprised, and somehow a little calmer than before. Rowan rarely gave formal lessons. He preferred simple conversations. When someone asked about the stars, he encouraged them to look for themselves. "Wonder is best discovered," he often said, "not explained." The townspeople appreciated this, for Rowan never made the heavens feel complicated. He made them feel welcoming, as though anyone could belong among the stars simply by looking up. Year after year, the tower remained a gathering place. Children grew older. Visitors came and went. The seasons continued their gentle cycle. Yet, one thing never changed. Each evening, as darkness settled over Eldermere, a lantern appeared in the tower window. Its warm glow could be seen from almost anywhere in town. People often smiled when they noticed it, for they knew Rowan was there, watching the stars, keeping quiet company with the night. And on one ordinary autumn evening, as that familiar lantern shone above the lake, Rowan would notice something he had never seen before. A single bright star rising in the eastern sky. It was a quiet autumn evening in Eldermere. The air had turned cool, and a soft wind moved gently across the lake. Rowan sat in his tower as usual, watching the first stars appear. Everything seemed familiar. Everything seemed peaceful. But then he noticed something unusual. Near the eastern horizon, a single bright star began to glow. At first, he thought it was just another ordinary star. But something about it felt different. It shone more steadily, more brightly, as though it had been placed carefully in the sky. Rowan watched it closely over the following evenings. The star did not move like the others. It did not fade or flicker. It simply remained in the same place, glowing with a calm and steady light. Night after night it returned, always in the east, always unchanged. Soon, Rowan began to adjust his telescope toward it first, before anything else. He found himself drawn to it, without knowing why. It did not take long before the people of Eldermere noticed the strange star as well. Children pointed toward it during evening walks. Fishermen mentioned it while tying their boats along the shore. Even travelers stopped in the town just to ask about it. Has there always been a star like that? They wondered. But no one had an answer, and Rowan had none to give. Only questions filled his mind. As the weeks passed, Rowan realized something else. The star did not feel distant in the way other stars did. It felt closer, not physically, but emotionally, as if it were quietly watching the world below, just as he was watching the sky above. Sometimes, when Rowan looked through his telescope, he had the strange feeling that the star was somehow aware of him. This thought made him pause, but it did not frighten him. Instead, it filled him with quiet curiosity. One particularly still night, clouds drifted across the sky. For a few moments, all the stars disappeared. The world became completely dark, except for one light. The eastern star remained visible through the passing clouds, steady, unshaken. Rowan leaned closer to his telescope. He watched it without blinking. A soft calm spread through him. It was as though the entire night sky was guiding him toward that single point of light. By the end of that season, Rowan stopped trying to explain the star. He stopped searching books for answers. He stopped asking travelers for theories. Instead, he simply watched it. Every night, quietly, patiently. And somewhere deep inside, he began to understand something important. Not every mystery needed to be solved. Some were meant to be experienced, to be felt, to be appreciated. And so the eastern star remained in the sky, and Rowan continued his quiet watch, unaware that this strange light would soon become the center of an even greater moment in Eldermere's story. Let's pause here for a moment. Take a slow breath in and slowly breathe out. Feel your body becoming lighter. Let your thoughts slow down. You are safe. You are relaxed. And the story will continue in just a moment. As autumn slowly deepened in Eldermere, the town prepared for its most beloved tradition, the Festival of Lanterns. It was a night when the entire town came together to celebrate light, hope, and the beauty of the lake. For weeks, families prepared handmade lanterns. Some were simple, made from wood and paper. Others were decorated with delicate carvings and soft-colored glass. Children helped paint patterns of stars and moons. Elders shared designs passed down through generations. The whole town seemed to glow even before the festival began. When the evening of the festival finally arrived, Eldermere transformed. The streets were filled with warm golden light. Music drifted gently through the air. The smell of baked bread and sweet pastries filled every corner. People gathered along the lake's edge, waiting for sunset. Rowan stood quietly on his hilltop tower, watching the town below. From above, it looked like a field of tiny stars had fallen to earth. As darkness settled, the festival began. One by one, lanterns were set free upon the lake. They floated slowly across the water, glowing softly like drifting stars. Their reflections shimmered beneath them, doubling the beauty of the scene. The lake became a moving sky, a gentle river of light stretching into the distance. Children laughed as they watched their lanterns drift away. Adults stood in quiet admiration. And for a moment, the entire town felt perfectly still. From his tower, Rowan watched the festival unfold. The lake below was filled with hundreds of glowing lanterns. Above, the night sky was filled with countless stars. For a brief moment, it became difficult to tell them apart. He leaned closer to the telescope, but soon stopped. No instrument was needed. The beauty was something to simply witness, something to feel. As Rowan observed the lake, his attention was drawn once again to the eastern sky. The mysterious star was there, brighter than ever. But something unusual happened that night. As lanterns floated across the water, the star's reflection appeared stronger in the lake than before. It almost seemed as though the star was responding to the festival below, as if it were quietly acknowledging the light of the town. Rowan watched in silence. A strange sense of connection filled him. The festival continued long into the night. Music softened. Lanterns drifted farther into the lake. And eventually, silence returned. Only the gentle glow of fading lights remained. Rowan stood at the window of his tower, looking over Eldermere. The town was peaceful, the lake was glowing, and the eastern star still shone above the horizon. For reasons he could not explain, Rowan felt something shift within him. Not in the world, but within himself. A quiet understanding began to form. That light, whether in the sky or on the water, had a way of bringing people together. And in that realization, the night felt warmer than ever before.
Winter arrived in Eldermere more quietly than anyone noticed. One morning, Rowan woke to find the world covered in white. Soft snow had fallen through the night, covering rooftops, fields, and the winding paths of the town. The lake was beginning to freeze at its edges, and the air carried a deep, gentle silence. Everything felt slower, quieter, as if the entire town had taken a long, peaceful breath.
As days passed, the snowfall grew heavier. The hills disappeared beneath thick white blankets. The roads became soft and uneven, and many villagers chose to stay inside, gathered around warm fires. Eldermere began to feel smaller, cozy, like a secret world hidden beneath winter's touch. Even the sound of footsteps outside seemed softer now, muffled by snow.
High on the hill, Rowan's tower stood strong against the cold winds. Its stone walls were dusted with frost. Its windows glowed warmly at night. And from its highest room, Rowan continued his nightly watch. The cold did not stop him. Wrapped in a thick cloak, he climbed the stairs as always, for the sky still called to him, and the stars still waited above the snow. On clear nights, the winter sky was especially bright. The air was sharp and still, making the stars appear closer than ever. Rowan often found himself lost in the silence above. The frozen lake below reflected the moonlight like polished silver. Snow-covered trees stood motionless, like sleeping guardians of the land. And the world felt suspended in time. Quiet, endless, peaceful. Even through the coldest nights, the mysterious eastern star remained. Unchanged, unshaken. It shone through snowfall, through storms, through the longest nights of winter. Rowan noticed something new about it during this season. Its light felt warmer now, not in temperature, but in presence, as if it was offering comfort to the cold world below. Many nights, Rowan simply sat and watched it without moving. Winter changed Eldermere in many ways. People moved more slowly. Conversations became softer, and time itself seemed to stretch gently across the days. Yet there was a strange beauty in this stillness. Children built lanterns from ice. Families gathered closer indoors. And even in silence, there was comfort. Rowan often thought that winter was not an ending, but a pause, a moment for the world to rest. And so, beneath endless snow and silent stars, Eldermere drifted peacefully through the season. It was late winter in Eldermere, when the cold still lingered in the air and the lake remained partly frozen at its edges. One evening, a thick fog rolled in without warning. The mountains disappeared. The shoreline faded, and the lake became a silent, grey world with no clear direction. Even familiar places felt strange in that heavy mist. That night, one of the town's fishermen was still out on the water, trying to return home.
The fisherman rowed slowly, but the fog made everything confusing. He could no longer see the shore. He could no longer hear the town. Even the sound of the water felt distant and unclear. Every direction looked the same. Left or right, forward or back, it no longer mattered. The world had turned into a quiet emptiness. For the first time in his life, he felt truly lost. As the fisherman drifted, he began to notice something faint ahead, a small point of light. At first, he thought it was a trick of the fog, but as he rowed closer, the light grew steadier, brighter, calmer. It did not flicker like a lantern in the wind. It shone with a steady glow, almost like a star reflected upon the water. Above the fog, the sky was hidden. But the fisherman now realized something strange. The light guiding him was not coming from the shore. It was coming from above, a reflection on the water. The mysterious eastern star was shining through the fog, even though the sky itself could not be seen. Its light stretched across the lake like a path, a silent guide leading him forward. Trusting the light, the fisherman slowly followed its reflection. Row by row, he guided his boat through the mist. The closer he followed the light, the clearer his direction became. And then, at last, shapes began to appear. The wooden docks, the edge of the town, the familiar shoreline of Eldermere. He had made it back safely. The next morning, the fisherman told everyone what had happened. At first, people listened in silence. A few thought it was only luck. Others believed it was coincidence. But Rowan listened differently. He said nothing, only looked toward the sky, because he already knew the star, and he already understood something important. Sometimes, light does not need to be understood. It only needs to be followed. And in the heart of winter, Eldermere once again felt the quiet comfort of being guided by something greater than itself. By now, Rowan had spent many years in his tower. So many nights had passed that he could no longer count them. He had watched summer skies filled with gentle warmth. He had watched autumn skies glowing with soft amber light. He had watched winter skies stretched wide and silent. And through all of it, the stars had never once abandoned him. They had remained constant, patient, unchanging. The mysterious eastern star had now been in the sky for many seasons. It had comforted the town during winter. It had guided a lost fisherman home. It had become part of everyday life in Eldermere. Yet Rowan never stopped wondering about it, not because he wanted to solve it, but because he wanted to understand what it meant. One quiet evening, as he sat in his tower, he finally stopped asking, "What is it?" and instead asked himself a different question. Why does it feel like it's here for us? As Rowan looked out over the sleeping town, he realized something simple. The star did not need to be explained. It did not need a name. It did not need a reason to exist. Its presence alone was enough. It brought calm to the people of Eldermere. It brought comfort during lonely nights. And it reminded everyone to look upward, beyond their daily worries. Sometimes meaning was not found in answers. Sometimes meaning was found in feelings. Rowan looked down from his tower window. Eldermere was quiet. Lanterns glowed softly in cottage windows. Smoke rose gently from chimneys, and the lake reflected the night sky like a mirror of dreams. In that moment, Rowan understood something deeper. The town itself was part of the same harmony as the sky. Just as the stars watched over Eldermere, Eldermere also watched the stars. A quiet connection existed between them. For the first time in a long while, Rowan felt no need to search further, no need to study harder, no need to uncover every mystery. He simply sat back in his chair and breathed slowly. The night air was cool and gentle. The stars shone steadily above, and the eastern star remained in its place, calm and bright. Rowan accepted it as it was, a presence, a reminder, a quiet companion in the sky. From that night onward, Rowan's watching changed. He still used his telescope. He still recorded the movement of the heavens, but something inside him had softened. He no longer looked at the stars as problems to solve. He looked at them as wonders to appreciate. And in that quiet understanding, Rowan found something he had not expected. Peace. Deep, lasting peace. As though the sky itself had been waiting for him to understand this all along. Years continue to move gently through Eldermere. Without notice at first, Rowan began to feel the weight of time in his body. His steps became slower, his hands a little more careful,
and the long climb up the tower stairs took more effort than before. But still, every evening he climbed, not out of habit alone, but because the sky still called to him in its quiet way, and Rowan still answered. One spring evening, the air was especially calm. The lake below reflected the fading light of sunset. Birds returned to their nests, and Eldermere slowly settled into its nighttime peace. Rowan lit his lantern at the base of the tower. Its warm glow flickered softly in the growing darkness. Then he began his slow climb upward, step by step, stone by stone, the same path he had walked for so many years. One spring evening, the air was especially calm. The lake below reflected the fading light of sunset. Birds returned to their nests, and Eldermere slowly settled into its nighttime peace. Rowan lit his lantern at the base of the tower. Its warm glow flickered softly in the growing darkness. Then he began his slow climb upward, step by step, stone by stone, the same path he had walked for so many years. Rowan sat beside his telescope, but did not immediately use it. Instead, he simply looked, not searching, not analyzing, just being present. In that moment, he felt something deep and gentle inside him. A sense that his long journey of watching had already given him everything it needed to. Not answers, but understanding. Not knowledge, but peace. Rowan placed his hand lightly on the wooden frame of the telescope. It had been his companion for so many years. Through seasons, through winters, through countless nights of silence and stars. He smiled softly, not with sadness, but with gratitude. He no longer felt the need to chase every mystery, because he had learned how to live with them. That night did not feel different at first. The stars were the same. The lake was the same. The tower was the same. But something within Rowan had quietly changed. He stayed longer than usual at the window, watching the eastern star glow above the horizon, as if saying farewell in its own silent way. Rowan closed his eyes for a moment and listened to the quiet of the night. Peaceful, endless, kind. It was his final long night in the tower, and Eldermere slept gently beneath a sky full of stars. In the days that followed Rowan's final long night in the tower, something subtle changed in the sky. The mysterious eastern star, which had remained steady for so many years, began to dim. At first, it was barely noticeable. Only those who watched the sky closely could tell. Its light was still there, but softer, quieter, as if it was slowly stepping away from the world. Rowan noticed it immediately, yet he did not feel alarm, only calm acceptance. Soon, others in Eldermere began to notice as well. Children pointed out that the star did not shine as brightly as before. Fishermen spoke about it while repairing their nets. Even travellers passing through the town paused to look longer at the night sky. Some wondered if something was wrong. Others felt a strange sadness they could not explain. But Rowan, when asked, only smiled gently. He had no worry in his heart. On one still evening, Rowan climbed the tower for what would be one of his last visits. The air was cool and soft. The lake below reflected a deep, peaceful darkness, and above, the stars shimmered like distant memories. Rowan sat by the window and looked toward the eastern horizon. The star was still there, but its glow was faint now, almost like a whisper of light, not disappearing, just returning home. Rowan did not speak. He did not write. He did not try to capture the moment. He simply watched. And in watching, he understood. The star had never been meant to stay forever. It had come like a gentle visitor, to guide, to comfort, to remind. And now its journey was ending, just as all journeys eventually do. Night after night, the star grew dimmer, until finally, on a quiet evening with no wind and no clouds, it faded completely. There was no sound, no light breaking, no sudden disappearance, just a soft fading into the darkness, as if it had always been part of the sky's breath, and now had returned to it. Rowan closed his eyes and smiled. Even after the star was gone, something remained. The memory of it, the feeling it had left behind, the comfort it had given to Eldermere, the lessons it had quietly taught without ever speaking. The town still looked up at the sky each night, but now they did so differently, with more patience, more wonder, more peace. And in that way, the star had never truly left. It had simply changed form, becoming part of how people saw the world. And as Eldermere continued to rest beneath the endless night sky, Rowan understood that some lights are never lost. They simply live on in those who remember them. Time moved forward in Eldermere, as it always had. Generations passed gently through the town. Children grew up, became parents, and then became elders themselves. Yet the stories remained. The story of Rowan, the Star Watcher, and the mysterious eastern star that once lit the night sky. Even those who had never seen it still felt its presence in the tales they were told. It had become part of Eldermere's memory, part of its identity.
Rowan's tower still stood on the grassy hill overlooking the lake. Weathered by wind and time, but strong as ever. It no longer had the same quiet glow it once did every night, but people still visited it. Children climbed its steps with curiosity. Travellers paused there to rest and look at the view. And elders often stood in silence, remembering nights they had once spent beneath its roof. The tower had become more than a place. It had become a symbol, a reminder of wonder.
The lake continued to reflect the sky each night, just as it always had. Even without the eastern star, the heavens above Eldermere remained beautiful. Stars still appeared one by one. The moon still drifted slowly across the darkness, and the water still mirrored it all with gentle perfection. People often said the lake felt different now, calmer somehow, as if it carried the memory of all the nights that had passed. Though the mysterious star was gone, its influence remained. It had taught the people of Eldermere to look upward more often, to notice small moments of beauty, to find comfort in quiet things, and to understand that not everything in life needs explanation. Some things are meant simply to be experienced, and then remembered. That lesson stayed with the town long after the light had disappeared. Rowan himself was remembered not as a scholar or a teacher, but as someone who simply loved to look at the sky. People said he never tried to own knowledge. He simply shared wonder. And that made all the difference. Even after he was gone, his name was spoken softly and respectfully, not with grandeur, but with warmth, like a familiar memory. On clear nights, Eldermere still gathered quietly beside the lake. Lanterns still glowed softly in windows. The wind still moved gently through the hills, and the stars still watched from above. Everything continued as it always had. Yet something subtle remained in the air, a feeling of calm, a feeling of presence, as if the sky itself remembered Rowan and the star that once guided their nights. And so Eldermere rested beneath the endless heavens, not in mystery, not in sadness, but in peace. A peace that had been earned slowly over time, and now lived forever in the quiet heart of the town. And now, the night grows even quieter. The stars continue to shine above Eldermere, and the calm lake reflects a sky that never truly ends. As this story comes to a close, let its peace stay with you. Let your mind rest like the silent town under the night sky. There is nowhere to go now. Nothing left to do. Only rest. Only calm. Only sleep.
good night. And sweet dreams from Eldermare Nights.